Hello and welcome. I'm Natalie Saunderson, and this is Conscious Female Brands. This workshop today is about ways that we can help ourselves thrive, not only as women in business, but women who are interested in creating holistic business practices, but also allowing themselves to just see their work life in general from that perspective, from the lens of wanting to create something that not only perpetuates their own well-being, perpetuates well-being in the business itself, and then perpetuates the well-being of others through the use of your services. And so this type of thinking not only has a direct impact on your life, on the lives of those people that you serve, but it actually creates a ripple effect in terms of how you show up in the world of commerce. And this initially became an interesting topic for me when I started assisting women in business about 5 years ago now. And I noticed that even though I was mostly working with clients and predominantly women, but clients in general that were offering some type of service that had to do with either wellness or expansion. And I say that in terms of like the growth of the person. So giving them some type of skills or practices or tools or learning or health related services. And all of this seemed to be, really in alignment with my area of interest in life. And then I quickly realized that when I was observing not only how my clients were running their business, I felt this really abrupt shift in their life when it came to the way they were running their business. And from the outside, as a yoga teacher, I couldn't help but notice how this actually affected the way that their services were received and the success they had in either growing what they were doing further or just really getting behind what their next steps were in business. And because of this kind of separation with the nature of their services and the energy they had as a person, and then having to kind of push that agenda through the lens of a business strategy or a business model, was when I first began to get really curious about the energetics behind all the different components that come up and arise when we have a business. And as someone who's also ran my own business for many, many years, I recognized that I hadn't had that foresight in my younger years to see myself as a business, because the services that I were offering, teaching yoga, running yoga retreats, holding women's gatherings, and this type of the nature of what I was doing was so intensely personal that there was a resistance to me treating it as something that was to be marketed, was to be, pushed out into the world and gaining traction or an audience. I had quite a journey into understanding how to stay in the integrity and the authenticity of what I was doing and allow it to be seen and received without shape-shifting myself along that way. And so the keys to thriving as a holistic entrepreneur is really just about examining this dichotomy that we're in when we show up, whatever it is that our services are. When we desire to have that part of our life, their work life, integrated deeply into who we are and how we want to live, then we are looking at a different way of approaching our work, right? So it's no longer what I consider from the outside in. When we go to other people to help inform us about certain areas of our life, that's called the outside in. It's got to come from the inside out. And that is what this whole discussion is really encouraging you to examine within yourself. What areas in your work life do you have to kind of change your nature or move and morph the way that you would prefer to operate into the way you think you should operate? And so this is just really a discussion that I've put together to help you examine what parts of yourself are either in alignment and promoting the kind of expansion of your business, and what parts of yourself have you not quite figured out a path that is supporting the rest of either yourself or your work. And there's so many different components to having a thriving business that we're going to discuss quite a few of them. When we start to see the health of our business from that perspective and lens of a holistic entity, then the way that we decide the small daily everyday decision-making kind of part of ourselves, the way that we set ourselves up to succeed, the way that we treat each individual piece has to continue to feed the whole, not just get that off the to-do list because it's not my favorite task and now it's taken care of, but to really see everything in that department, if you will, of our work life, of the overall energy of our business as either serving more or not necessarily serving the health of the unit. And so again, this talk is for anybody who desires to either have a very balanced and supportive and enjoyable professional life, and for those of us who are also in the arena of offering services that are either usually close to our hearts, they might contribute to people's well-being. We might be working very closely with somebody's inner world or their health or their emotional well-being. And so the holistic part of what we're doing should always be trickling out into the way that we ourselves are operating in the world, right? And this is where I saw, and I still see, so many holes and gaps in the conversation. Because true abundance does not come from simply the amount of money we're able to make or the enjoyment of your work. It actually comes back to how balanced your efforts and your ability to receive and the way your services are received and reciprocated monetarily. This holistic version of what's happening in the world is starting to shift from a more consumerism-based economic beneficial, driving your work out into the world so that you can receive versus serve. And so it's a very big conversation that we're going to take a look at here. And I hope, if anything, that you take something to consider in the actions that you take in your work life. Because what you perpetuate out into the world can either set the trajectory and the momentum towards a different way of trading our services, or you can choose to go with a more traditional approach. And there's no wrong direction. It's really about how you want to feel, what you want to invest in, and ultimately what you want to promote out in the world. So let's dive in. I've got us a little, just to keep myself mostly on track and to meet all of the different points that come up along the journey of having a conscious brand. And when we look at, I'm going to make this a bit smaller. When we look at not only how we want to operate in the world, we also have to think about not just how we want to feel, but okay, here we are. So I've got a little slideshow to keep us on track. And this is just going to allow us the opportunity So I've got us a little slideshow just to walk us through some of the points that I want to expand a little bit further on. And there we go. A lot of these areas are things that we can consider when we're making, as I said, the daily choices around how our business is operating. And I wanted to just briefly go into the idea of thriving initially, because thriving in its nature means that we as a person are optimally operating. And because of that definition, each of us has to recognize that we're built slightly differently, and that we might be after having certain qualities or priorities in our life that might not be the same as the next person. And so the idea that we can thrive in our work life isn't just the assumed financial respect or successes in terms of big audience or well received. Thriving actually means that we feel deeply purposeful, that we feel like we are on track, right? We know that feeling in our bodies, in our lives, when we are in the right place at the right time. And so even if you're not necessarily thriving financially yet, or you know somewhere in your being that you are deeply on the road or on the path to be doing the work in the world that you're supposed to be doing. And this doesn't need to be, necessarily big endeavors. It doesn't need to be the type of work that the rest of the world will right away recognize and celebrate. But if you as a person know that it's helping you thrive, right? It's something that your inner world is needing to address or wanting to create, then that is indeed helping you thrive as a person, because that work is also supporting you in other areas of your life to show up and be happy and satiated and feeling fulfilled. Okay. So in order to thrive in any area of your life, you have to know what conditions you require in order to thrive. So again, we're going to be looking at ways that as individuals, we might want to consider or take a deeper look at before we make decisions around which direction our business goes in. So we're going to investigate what, first of all, holistic entrepreneur is, specifically female, but I feel like this discussion is actually one that's needed with men and women. I think being a woman in the world is just slightly different in the way that we usually tick and the way our energy operates. The amount of structure and flexibility in business, now this is really big because most of us tend to lean one way or the other, right? Most of us like to have a lot of creativity. And then when it comes to actually sitting down to create the channels, if you will, that people can access us, or the consistent ways that we reach more people or share what we're doing, that can become very draining very quickly. And vice versa. Some people are very good at crossing T's and dotting I's. And then when it comes to creating new things or new ideas or content, that's when they really start to flounder. And there's no wrong way to be. It's just recognizing that most of us are not perfectly evenly built, and we tend to have one area that we're more comfortable working in. Financial health. So this is working with the idea of goals from a traditional sense, and the way of looking at how our beliefs are either helping us when we want to grow our work in the world, or how are they actually keeping us in a place that we're more comfortable. So it's always really good in any area of our life to be asking these deeper questions. Is this something that I know? Is this something that's familiar? Or is this the ultimate version of what I'd like to see for myself? Because they're very different usually. Human design and leadership. So this is a big topic, but I'm going to loosely be sharing a little bit about how I've worked with human design and how I've started to either learn roles and tasks and things that I should take on in my energy with what I have going on in my life, and the ways that I've had to say no to other things. And then a foundation of inspiration. And this is really, really important, because if you've been in business long enough, you know that business requires a lot of energy, constant energy. So I'm not going to fit this perfectly into the frame, but What is a holistic entrepreneur? Now, an entrepreneur is somebody, again, that not just a business person, it's somebody that's usually bringing something forth into the world that has a new energy to it. And when I say new energy, it's really about something that hasn't been created before. And if you're creating a new business, then it hasn't been created before. And because of that, you have to recognize that it's not supposed to be built necessarily like anybody else's business. You can go that route. You can decide that you're going to take on a mentor or possibly look at courses and discover what works for other people. The way that I view business at its core essence is that it actually has its own energy, very similar to a relationship between the two different individuals. There's the thing that we take care of, the relationship. There's a container. There is some values that we both uphold that we've agreed to, and the business is the same. So a business is not just this linear, if you put that in and you get that piece in place and you put that chip where it goes, and then all of a sudden it's going to necessarily spit out what you want. It is an energy. And it's an energy because people are interacting with it. And when you become an entrepreneur, you have to think not only in terms of what am I creating, but how do I want to create it, right? So this is what I got really fascinated with when I started diving into the world of other people's businesses and observing where they maybe were being more holding themselves back, conservative, if you will, in their business decisions and the way they went about their work, or other people who had so much creative energy and ideas, but they generally lacked the consistent structure and the discipline and the part of themselves that needed to be committed to the work that was required to get that out in the world. So that's where we will look closely at how to support both sides of that coin. And when, as we've covered, we use the word holistic. Holistic is, by its definition, I have it at the bottom here. The ultimate definition of holistic, the part of something that is interconnected, meaning that it's always feeding back into the whole. And so even if you don't help people create holistic nutritional meal plans or something that's automatically associated with being holistic, you can still create a business and services that feel like they feed your values, that feel like they feed the type of person you're working with usually, and that often, inevitably have to feed the way that you're received in your business and the way that you show up. And if anything, I would say that that is the number one. If your business is not supporting you, whether that's not only just financially, whether it's energetically, if it's taking so much energy, if it's stressing you out, if you're doing things that you're not meant to be doing, all these things are eventually draining the trajectory of how far you go because you're simply putting your energy in the wrong places. So anybody, not only that does holistic services, but wants to go about setting up a business from that place of having every part of it serve the way that the business is running. Okay. Where do I start to create change in my business model? So I personally feel like if you are the head of your business, whether you use the word founder or CEO or boss or whatever it is that you see yourself as, that you feel comfortable labeling yourself as, if you're not doing the things in your business that help it gain momentum, because as the boss, as the person who's leading, if you're not doing things that serve how you show up, if you're not doing things that make you inspired, if you're not creating inspired, a team who's also knowing very clearly what their roles are, and if you're not able to look at yourself and say, is this a balanced role for me? Then chances are you're making a lot of decisions that don't have a connection to that core well-being of the leader. And if the leader is doing things from an older paradigm where we feel like we just do because we have to, that is displacing the actual energy behind how you show up. So it's bypassing the effect that's going to have on the rest of your business. For example, if you've ever worked for somebody who is overworking and never takes a day off, and they show up and everybody gets used to them overworking and being kind of a workaholic, and then eventually there's this one day where they need some time for themselves, and everybody's thrown off when they're, when their reaction, they're exhausted or they're burnt out or they're upset, because they're used to them operating a different way. But that doesn't mean that that way has been serving that person. And so the backlash of people who don't have any boundaries around their work life is that they often can be reactive. They can often sometimes drop the ball. They can often have a lot of pressure on their employees or the people they work with. And this isn't just about your employees or the people that you work with. It's also about your clients and your customers. It often has this energy is leaking everywhere because that's how the person is feeling. That's how they're running the business. And so this is really important. When you start to say, okay, I have my business, I have the things set up that are supposed to be set up, but then how much are you working? How happy are you in that work? What are your conversations like with everybody that interacts with your business? Is there places where you're dropping the ball? Are there places you need some more support in? Do you need a few less hours in the evening or on the weekend so that you can actually refuel and recharge and come back to your work with a lot more to offer everyone? So that's the first thing that I would start to look at is if you're the head of your business, because you can't really take the reins in someone else's work. You can't help your boss decide to run their business differently if they don't want that input. So in your mind, even if you don't own a business, how you run your work world can still be seen as you as a business, right? So even if you're working underneath somebody, you can still look at, is this serving me? And is there anywhere that it's not? And can I adjust that area? And how can I move that area? So what are some of the ways to support myself as an entrepreneur? Well, first of all, the first thing that comes to mind that I see all the time is people overworking. And I've definitely had this happen in my own life where we think we need to do everything and we don't know how to turn the to-do list off. And we have this sense of urgency. And only recently I've realized one of the biggest things that I'm doing for myself in my personal life, in my professional life, is I'm releasing the timeline. And what that means is that it's not that I don't have any goals or agendas, because I'm very, very connected to what needs to happen and when a good timing would be for it. But it's not putting the pressure for things needing to happen. Because when I do that in any context, in any part of my life, the way that someone interacts with me is going to feel that pressure. And so I don't want people, if they're deciding to come and ask me about what I do, to feel pressure to connect with me or to work with me. And this is something that I feel goes slightly, it's counterintuitive to a traditional way of marketing, because they're all about promoting, all about a forward. It's kind of has this energy of in your face, trying to get attention, trying to be visible. And when you look at the lens of a holistic approach to business, you're going to be visible. It's just about to who do you want to be visible to and how do you want to be perceived. And if you're always driving your work out into the world, it's going to have that energy when people see it. Right? So there's a way that you can share. And if you're so inspired, you want to share often, then that's different because you're actually so inspired and people can feel that. But when you have these goals that you're trying to meet, you're not always staying deeply connected. Well, is this the right time for this? Do we have other things that we maybe need to focus on to get into place to be able to manage that level of either business or that amount, that volume and audience? So I see this a lot, is that people try and skip steps. They want to go from where they're currently operating into a much bigger playing field. But then when we look closely at what do you have in place, customer service, are your automations all worked out? Is your website even, representing what you do accurately? Simple things, But when they have this idea of what they want to do, that seems to take over. And sometimes it can be a bit of a false sense of it's not got the proper foundation to truly succeed. It might gain a lot of momentum and attention, but it's not able to actually follow through with those services. So ways to support yourself is to definitely observe how you're using your time and how you're spending your energy. And in the many ways, your downtime is just as important as the amount of time that you show up for your work. So hopefully you are able to use that time to refuel and restore your energy. Structure versus flexibility. Now, this is a really big one because as women, especially in the work world, we do not work the same, and we do not always show up the same, and we do not always feel the same. And we can have massive amounts of energy one day, and then the next day be working or processing something that's taking away from that energy. And so I would like to strike the whole conversation about consistency out the window for a lot of women, because we're just not built that way. We're not built that way. We don't thrive when we're forced to feel like there's a big expectation. Our energy is cyclical for obvious reasons. It is on a cycle. It's on a different schedule, if you will. And some of us, again, it's not just about the biological or hormonal shifts that are happening within us. It's also that when we access a lot of creativity, or if we access part of us that is like innovative, we often are stepping away from a more logical timeline, which means that if you've ever observed like an artist, and I go into this in yoga mode when I'm teaching, it's always like time, where did that go? If you step away into the part of your brain that's there to create, it's not so concerned with staying in working hours, or, you know, just showing up with that inspiration from 9 to 5 type of thing. And so the way to address this is to accept that that is going to come up. There are going to be times that you're really inspired to work on your business, and there's going to be times when you might have to get yourself to at least do the bare minimum, because also life is going to play its hand, and there's just simply things that come up in our worlds that take priority over growing our business, or, you know, expanding what we do. And that's natural, and we should honor that. And the essential structure of any business has at its core the foundation of, let's use a very practical example, a way for people to discover what you do. So that should be like something solid, not always moving, something solid, like one main area, whether it's a website or it's a landing page or it's a Facebook page that you can direct people towards. So it's one main, let's say, hub, like a house. Then you should have very clear ideas of how people can reach you, right? So that could be in the form of a link, a messaging service. It could be joining a newsletter. It could be the first offer that you usually give people. You put them through, you know, like, here's the main product that I offer, and then there's extra behind it. It should be very clear. What they call in the business lingo is CTA. There's a very clear way to either get closer to you or to experience what you offer. But first, at that core, you need to have a very clear idea of where people are going, so that you can build out a way to help people get there, right? So that might be through word of mouth. It might be through talking about it a lot. It might be through paid marketing. Who knows, right? And it's not that holistic marketing has to be all organic. It's just how you do it has to be, this feels right. This is a way that's going to actually like allow us to step back, put what we want out there, and then help it get some visibility. CTA, the first place you want people to interact with you, has to be very clear. Do not have 10, have 1. And then from there, you can start to tease out ways that people can stay connected with you. So if they wanted to stay in your bubble, if they wanted to know what you're doing next, then again, I would encourage things like a membership, or a newsletter and just keeping people updated, keeping them visible, a Facebook group, adding them in your social media channels. Sometimes that's enough, just so they can see what you're constantly putting out there. And those structures, if you want to go further, there's a way to continue, following up with your customers, making sure they're happy, checking in with them, asking for feedback, and this is really important because we are working in the realm of relationships. We're not just working in this, exchange that has no actual meaning. It's still an exchange beyond money and services. It's an energetic exchange, and you want it to feel very clean, which means it has to feel very equal. And ultimately, as you grow your business, if you get feedback and you continue to nurture those relationships, they're going to show you what you could be doing better. And this is really useful for you as a person in any context to be learning, okay, how am I being received? Not necessarily a job to maneuver that if that person is wanting more than what you offer, or wanting something different than what you offer, but it's useful for you to observe and to hear. So what does being flexible have to do with business? Flexibility is such a fabulous word, and also very open-ended. Flexibility for me means that, again, we're not looking at the way that we want our business to run through this linear timeline anymore, because your business has its own energy. And when we start to understand that versus write down our 2-year timeline, we also have to understand that we might not be able to see everything that's going to occur in that business. And when we get really fixated, and when I see people start to struggle with what they've been taught versus what's happening, is they'll go to some type of course or seminar, and they're encouraged to dream big and envision and then write down the goals and reverse engineer it, which sometimes works. But a lot of the times there's things that come up that were not planned or they weren't expected. Sometimes there are beautiful surprises, and sometimes they're, obstacles that can throw someone off unless they expect to be going through some growth with their work. And being flexible is really also about, this has a momentum of its own, and I don't know how it's going to be received, but I feel like this is the direction the work wants to go in. I feel like this is the way that I want to present what I offer. And through that process, you're going to learn, as I said, from the feedback of how it's received or the way that people are speaking about it, what is and isn't working. Another way that I also see this show up is that people are often encouraged to have what's called target audiences. I personally don't work that way, because I feel like I trust and lean into people are going to resonate with it or not. And I trust that they're able to recognize they do or they don't. It depends what audience and what skills you're working with. But when you have a certain degree of flexibility, it means that if it doesn't go the way that you immediately thought it would, you are able to accept, and you expect that, so you can change direction. You can write your sales, you can make a different choice next month, and it's not going to set you back or throw you off course because it wasn't according to your business plan. How to balance the two? I feel that most people, if we were to say chicken before the egg, which comes first, structure or flexibility, initially you have to have a vision for your work. That in itself is not a structural thing, it's a vision. And so to go into that world of visioning, we need to remove the structures of what we think we can do. And the vision can come from many different places. It can come from an idea you see out there and you want to do better. It can come from what you know you're naturally supposed to do. It can come from an aha moment, and then you want to switch directions in your professional life. But without that vision, it's very difficult to connect to how to build it. And so when we are always checking into the core essence of, is this holistic? Is this serving the whole? With that initial core vision, you need to be able to then say, okay, do I have a place for that vision to be shared? Structure. Then do I have a clear next step? And then you envision. So it's vision, right? Staying fluid, the world of ideas, structure, giving it some place to express itself. Then the next step, vision. What is the first thing that I'm going to offer from that initial core offering, right? The way that I'm showing up, this is the work. What is the first thing that I'm going to allow people to experience? Then that's vision, right? And then structure. So you can see how they're kind of stacking. Structure would be putting into place, making, you know, a product image with a logo, and then vision. How do I want to promote this? What feels like the right way for me to talk about these services, or to what platforms or what audience are most likely ready or wanting to be in this discussion? And so you can't just do vision, 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 vision without actually seeing how is this initial stage, wherever people are reading about my work, how is this being received? Okay, well, if nobody's interested in seeing that, then there's no point in setting up your first product, following up with a group, getting them into a membership, if nobody's really understanding what you offer. And so we always want to start from the roots, right? And start to build from there. Because the root system is based on your unique vision. You're the only person that's going to see it that way. You've got something to bring forth. It's unique. It's not something somebody else can replicate because it's coming through you. Now we create just a place for people to read more or hear more or watch more about what it is that you're offering. Why strategy alone won't make your business grow? I see this so much, and this is part of why I started doing this work, especially as women who, and I say women very broadly because there's many different variations and expressions of women. We have been taught certain things in the world of business that no longer feel supportive. In fact, they feel quite restricting to many women. And one of these things is that, you know, we have to slot ourselves into the way that it's always been done. So we need to shape shift the way that we might want to move or create things to be structured, solid, clean, direct, this type of thing, because then people will have an easier time understanding it. And there's some truth to that. What I see happening for a lot of women is that they don't stay the same in their work life. And because of that, when we create strategies that are also, this is how you interact with me, here's the solution, here's the roadmap, often it lacks what that woman's actually offering. And strategy is often quite, to be honest, quite focused on the end goal. It's not focused on every step being a part of the energy of the business. It's not focused on every step being even important. It's about the end goal. And when we choose to look at anything from that place, it might carry us far, might have the inspiration to like keep us going when times get tough, but we're also not negating the part of us that needs to navigate through our senses, through each step, through the information that we're getting. Is this working? Yes, no, but it's part of my strategy. I'm going to keep going, see how much further it takes me. So there's these pluses and minuses to just focusing on strategy. And one of them is that it's focusing again on the end goal versus you seeing your business as a living energy that's shape-shifting as you create it, as you share it. And the strategy might need to change as you gain more information. And again, I see a lot of people promoting strategies to get this X amount of dollars or to get X amount of clients. And they speak zero about what is needed and what type of clients those are and what you're doing for that money. So it's the process within that is very impersonal. And because of that, you're not actually going to be able to feel the integrity of the people that you're working with, right? It's kind of like, it's a very removed, again, consumeristic version of how we interact with each other, because it's focused mostly on the outcome, not about the process. And I feel like this is something that women need to acknowledge. We have a whole other part of us that shows up in business that is very intelligent, very in tune. When something's not working, it's not working. It doesn't mean that we just give up in a second because it doesn't feel good. It just means that we have the natural access to our intuition and parts of us that know which direction to go when we listen to it. When we connect to strategies, which is much more pragmatic and linear, then we are expecting that route, that path to lead us somewhere. And a lot of the times it doesn't lead us where we think it should be leading us. And my experience is that's because you're removing yourself from really feeling into the pieces that are coming together in that strategy. There's this kind of like hands off, should work, let's try it this way, versus really observing, is this working? Does this feel like it's a reflection of this business? Does it naturally make me feel aligned with this way of operating in the world or promoting us? Or is this something that I'm proud of? Or is this something someone told me to do so that I could get a bigger, wider audience? So this was a really big piece that I encourage women to trust their gut with, if you will, because women know their business quite often. They know the energy of their business anyway, and they know what feels like it will work or it won't. And so there's a combination of gaining new skills from sometimes outside sources and different people who can help you learn things about business. And there's the leaning in and the understanding that it is your creation initially. You have probably a good idea of who's going to be open and receptive to it. And you need to be in conversation with the way that your business grows. Because ultimately, again, it's coming back to, is this a reflection of something I'm proud of? Is this something I want to participate? Or has this grown into something far beyond what I want to be managing or maneuvering? And so if it has, perhaps that's fantastic, but perhaps it's not actually what you were after. And so we always want to be checking in that, knowing what our version of success is initially, right? What is our version of thriving? It helps us make the right choices at the right times. Financial health. Just going to say it. I feel like women have fallen into this pit of conversation that just is revolving around how much money we can make, how quickly we can make it. And for me, even though that on the outside looks very progressive and very empowering, what it also has done is shift the focus and the priority from a lot of women who have really amazing work. It's like it's taken over the conversation. And money is a byproduct. It's not the ultimate goal of your work, I don't feel. And this is where perhaps you might feel differently, but you have to ask yourself, is the only reason I show up for my work so that I can get a paycheck? Because if it is, well, I guarantee there's more fulfilling work out there in the world for you. But it's a very big part of where we're at collectively as well. Collectively, the conversations around finances these days, one, are not very uplifting. Two, they have this tone of scarcity running them. And so sometimes when I listen to people talk about their finances, it's actually run by the idea that if I just have enough, if I don't need to worry about it anymore, then I will be okay. Then I will feel successful, or then I can relax and have freedom. But it's actually reverse. And the reason that it's reverse is that you actually have access to abundance and freedom, regardless of your financial situation, even if that means your reality looks different. But your financial health is not dictated by your bank account. And so when we perpetuate this in the world, again, we want to remember the holistic effects that it's going to have on our business. People are going to pick up on that. And if people pick up that you actually care quite a lot about the monetary, you know, your ability to receive that aspect of the exchange, it does create a ripple effect for people. And it's not about, you can be clean and clear with your services and what they cost, but there's a difference when you're promoting, you know, the fact that your business is doing so well and you're sharing your financial trajectory and you're encouraging, and unless you're actually working with women and money. But even still, I feel like the ones that I see, the women in the world who are trying to, again, support and uplift more women having a financial version of themselves they're proud of, the conversation seems to revolve a lot about just the end goal and not the process to get there. And the process needs to be factored in because it's going to either resonate or not with women. And for me, what doesn't resonate is chasing something if I don't know why I'm chasing it. So if my version of financial health is never having to worry about money again, then I would chase it, but it's not. Financial abundance for me means that I'm deeply connected and intrigued and engaged with my work. And as a result, other people are deeply connected, engaged, intrigued, and being served from my work. And that creates the cycle that not only fuels my desire to show up in my purpose, but it gets other people excited, right? It's not just a bank transaction. It's much more than that. And so when we make financial goals with ease, this is a big one. Making financial goals of any kind needs to start from a place of really checking in with how healthy your financial relationship is in the first place, because it's impossible to say, here I am, not very happy. I want more money. I'm going to make this big goal, depending on how big of a jump you make in your mind. This is what I'd like to make. Now, what happens between making a goal and how you go about it is everything. And so making financial goals with ease, in my eyes, in my, experience, is small ways that you can succeed in moving the needle in a healthy direction. So instead of saying, I'd like to make $2 million, and maybe you make this and it works, $2 million more than I'm currently making this year, but be prepared to then have to walk yourself through what that means for you. And in my experience, if it tips you off of your balance, it's not going to be sustainable. So what I mean by that is that maybe you make that trajectory happen because it's locked in, you've created this intention, it's clear. What you do to create that $2 million may or may not make you or keep you in alignment with your ultimate version of thriving. And most people, no matter what anybody says, do not thrive long-term if they continue to sacrifice their health, their time, and their happiness, no matter how financially abundant they are. So making financial goals with ease is really about small ways that you can start to increase the amount of success you feel. You're moving yourself in a direction where your body is experiencing the knowing that you are financially moving towards abundance. You are financially supported, you are able to financially receive and experience the fruits of that. And so goals don't need to be massive, but when you meet those small goals, then you can make new ones. And then you can meet the small goals, get comfortable in your body with them, and then you can make new ones. And this is when money starts to get really fun, because it's not so much about needing something. Again, that's coming from scarcity. When we need something we don't have, we're usually focused on the idea that we don't have it yet. So creating a way that you can interact with something and succeed, and then maybe make the next bar a little bit further, is one of the healthiest ways to start a relationship with your money that feels fun. And this is a whole other topic. But it's not about chasing something, it's about playing with what's possible, Addressing where your business is leaking energy. Now, this is really big as well, because all of us have areas of our business that we don't love doing. The way that it relates to the way it's going to cost you money, though, is how long you let that leak continue. So maybe you have an employee that isn't necessarily helping the health of your business, but you really like them. And they're also not catching the ball quite often in their position. Or, you've got, let's say, a service or a landing page that you just really feel like, this is so frustrating. I hate dealing with this. This always drains me. It always makes me hate sitting down to do this part of my business. This is all small but essential energy leaks. Because what you want to bring into your business is space. You want to have space to handle more people. You want to have space to create new opportunities. You want to have space to create new ideas, even if you offer the same thing. How you talk about it should be creative by nature. It's like the way I talk about my daughter. It's not the same thing. She's got blonde hair and she's funny. It's changing because she's changing and your business is changing. And I guarantee that the way that you express what you do will change. And so if your business has these areas that are constantly taking your attention, no matter how small they are, if you've left something, haven't done taxes, something hasn't been hooked up properly, you need to do that newsletter, but you put it off every month. These are areas that your energy is being leaked. And it's going to take away from you getting, when those are cleaned up, for instance, you get to just fully experience the energy of your business, full momentum ahead. What's coming next? What do I want to do? What do I want to share? What do I want to work on? What do I want to create? Da, 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 da. This is so important and so applicable to almost every area of your life. Knowing where your business needs more support. I've seen in the last several years so much change in the world of online work. And one of them has been a bit of a difficulty in finding the right support. And the reason that sometimes it can be challenging is because we don't always have a chance to meet that person or to really know too much about their history, especially when it comes to online support. And sadly, some people and some women, I'll speak to women specifically, some women prefer to do things themselves than to go through the process of having somebody help them with it. And this is probably something, a quality that we've discovered we've grown into as women because we've had to become so independent in so many areas of our lives. And as a result, this often means that many women are overworking themselves. It means that many women are feeling the effects of that, which feel like unsupport. I'm unsupported, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tired, I'm working. And because this has been something I see so often, it's leaving that woman less capable of really showing up for her business. And this is something I've worked through because I generally am very tapped into the direction and the way that I want to show up. And so when I look for people to assist with that, I have to go through the process of really, do you understand where I'm coming from? Is this something you're interested in? Is this something you're capable of doing? What are your long-term goals? It requires a few conversations, not just, can you do the task? Because I don't really need anybody to work with me if they're just going to do something that they have no investment in. That doesn't resonate with the kind of business that I'm running. That doesn't resonate with anything I would want that person to do myself, because why would I want them to do something in their world that they don't care about? So when we address that some part of our business is like, perhaps, and I see this quite often, writing is not your area or forte, and you know that you need to create content, you need to do follow-up emails, you need to share about your next sale in the fall, it's coming up in a month and a half, and it just makes you feel all kinds of icky and procrastination. This is an area where you're going to need some support because it's not an area that you're going to be able to grow without addressing. And it's an area that's going to keep staying in your awareness until you actually get the support you need. So it is an investment, not only monetarily, but it's an investment in, if I take care of this part of my work that needs addressing, perhaps it's also you need an accountant and you say, well, I'm not big enough, I can't afford one. So I'm just going to let it continue to be an area that isn't addressed. Well, your financial well-being in a business is quite a large part of how your business is either going to thrive or not. And so when you say, I'm not able to now, you're basically saying, I'm stuck, but I can't get myself out because I don't have the means. Somehow, and there's many creative ways to do this, you're going to have to decide that this is probably one of the most essential pieces that you need in place to make sure that your business can grow. Because if you don't have your thumb on the awareness of what the financial, realities of your work is, how much does it cost? How much are these programs running that help my business stay afloat, that help my business reach clients? Then you're bypassing and not looking at some of the foundational structures that need to be in place for your work to actually handle more people and become more successful. And so this is not only just something about you being honest, like this isn't a job I enjoy. I know I need more help with my Instagram. This is also you giving yourself permission as a woman to not have to do it all. Because once you have the support, like anything, there's a whole other level of enjoyment that can come through for you in the way you show up. You don't need to just have 10 different tasks a day that require all different parts of your brain to be working. You can know that I'm going to speak to the next client, I'm going to take that call, I'm going to be in conversation with the supplier, and then I'm going to make sure that we have the itinerary set up for the next few months and what we're promoting. You don't need to be going into the back end of your website, fixing the dates on that, uploading new pictures. It's very exhausting having to try to do all these small pieces. Each piece is like a bite of a pie. And if all these small bites are being taken out all day long and you're not actually getting to the slice of the pie that is like, that's where you are in your business, this is your role, then by the time you get to your role where you're supposed to show up and shine, you've probably got like this much pie left because you've used your energy elsewhere. And the support that you need is often looking for you as well. So we forget this. When we allow people to support us, we're often somehow supporting them. When we offer services into the world, those people are also supporting us. So it's a relationship. And if we just stay like this, how much energy are we building? We're limiting the energy that we promote and perpetuate in the world. Business is, in its core definition, it's the energy of relationships, it's exchanges. And when we include people in the vision of our business, not only does the business energy grow, does the reality of what we're able to hold grow because you have more players on the table, you're also saying we're all invested in this, which creates more momentum for everybody to show up differently in the way that business shows up in the world. So this also goes into our next reality, which when we go back to the initial concept of what it means to thrive, we all have limiting beliefs about pretty much every area of our life when we really get down to it. But as a business owner, we have to think about what can I imagine for what I want to offer? Or do I even have any awareness of it? There's more possible for me than what I have now. Is that something that you think about often? Because we don't want to be so stuck in the what if possibility that we never are happy with what we have. But we want to be happy with what we have, also saying this work has the opportunity to grow and I want to grow with it. And as a business owner, we don't want to just get too comfortable, because after a while, what happens with comfort zones is that they eventually lose their energy, right? It's like going in a circle. Well, not very many people that I know of just want to go in a circle their whole life. They want to grow, whether they know it or not, whether they've hit that place in their life where they accept that or not. And because that is the nature of our human being, of our beingness, we want to grow, we want to experience, we want to learn new things, we want to explore, we want to try something that we haven't yet experienced thus far in our lives. This also applies to business. It's not that we just want to create something check it off the list and forget about it. Very few people, perhaps that will serve your financial needs, but it might not serve your sense of fulfillment, of that I'm using my time for the right reasons. I'm really being of use in the world. I'm showing up. I'm offering something to the betterment of people, of others. And most people at their core have that desire, right? Just floating around in vacation mode does not serve very many people for very long. For some people, if they've struggled, that does serve them for a period, right? For a period to help them experience a different reality, to get back into what it feels like to be in ease with life. But deep down, most people crave a deeply fulfilling work that they can offer, right? That their services, their skills are being used and they're useful for someone else. It perpetuates everyone's well-being when we look at our work like that. And so to limit, this is what I can think I can handle, that's realistic. But what happens if you were to get the right support around you to handle more? And when you think like that, what comes up in your body? And if your body responds with, there's a limiting belief there. Because ultimately, your work has a life of its own, and the only person that is going to be able to really show up and walk the path of your success in the world is you. You're walking with your business. You can't just push it out there and then hang back and not really show up for it. So this limiting belief really has a lot to do with our own, I guess, comfort around how big do I want to get? How much can I imagine for myself? What fantastical things or version of this can I create? And that's very individual. So there's no for sure necessary reason that you need to dream bigger than you already are if you're satisfied with what you have. Truly. There's no reason that we have to buy into the more, better, always faster, harder, bigger. Nuh-uh. If it doesn't serve you, when you think about it and you can be really honest, no, that's not who I am in this lifetime. That's not, I prefer working more intimately with people, then that's your truth. But we just want to be checking in that we're not subconsciously holding ourselves back because we're comfortable or we're scared. Your role as a leader. Need a sip of? This is a big one. When I first came to Bali, human design was everywhere. And I thought, oh, I've studied enough and I've used to be really big into astrology, still am in a different way. But human design is this really fascinating chart, this fascinating way of viewing the makeup of the person through your birth time, your birth date, and where you were born in the world. And it looks through this kind of lens. I keep using the word lens because that's what we're really doing when we decide to become more successful, is we're choosing how we show up, right? Our awareness is more heightened and we're choosing how we show up. And it's helpful to understand that you have choice by looking at your life through from different directions. And human design is really useful for a few reasons. And one of them is that it helps you understand how you tick. And this comes through in several different ways. That it understands your authority, which in human design is basically what is operating, right? What type of energy do you have generally in a day? And how does that energy show up in the world? And they speak about, being a generator, manifesting generator, reflector, or projector. And all these different labels relate to how you show up for your work, right? So how do you like things being done? How thorough are you? Are you up here kind of in the vision of it, or are you down here in the getting to become an expert at it? Do you let yourself move fast? Do you have to move slow? Do you have to be mindful? Do you need to be intuitive? it's a very useful tool to understand, okay, this is why I tick the way that I do, literally. There's also profiles where we have different kind of main core, let's say, I want to say roles, like an actor, you know, there's usually a lead, a supporting lead, antagonist, the comical relief, you know, there's all these different, the romantic, these roles that come through in who we are here to be, or who we're most likely drawn to be for other people and for ourselves. And so these show us that what we need, not only in how we operate, how quickly, are we, you know, supposed to do the work? Are we supposed to come up with the vision and then leave the work to others? Are we supposed to create the atmosphere for other people to thrive? Then we have these roles that we take on. So sometimes these roles are, you know, investigator roles where we're really trying to understand the way that the world ticks. Sometimes these are more uplifting roles. Sometimes these are more solo, introspective roles that we might need to play in order to then come out and offer our gift to the world. And this is very useful because it shows us that we're not all going to be received the same, one. We're not all going to tick the same, two. We're not all built the same, three. And so when it comes to our work, when we just say, here's the way to succeed, well, if I'm not built that way, how can I succeed? I'm literally going against how I naturally thrive in order to succeed. If I'm not supposed to be the person at the front sharing with the audience, speaking into a microphone, if I'm supposed to be behind the screen, coming up with the whole concept by myself, then that's the role that I should be playing. And it's very useful because it also gives you permission to look at yourself with this kind of curiosity. Instead of saying, I run a business, I should ... Well, figuring out what exactly is the ideal role for me. So why is it so important in business? Because in business, there's so many stagnant ideas around how you should be. You should be this, you should be that, you should show up this much, you should be always sure, you should never change, you should be clear, you should be niche, you should be this. No, it's, if you're not built like that, that's okay. It just means that you need to honor that you're not built like that. And you need to get closer to really helping yourself be in the role that you're meant to be as a leader or as a business owner. There's also centers in human design, which if you look at a chart, and I can share a link, and yes, I can share a link that basically you can look up your chart and there are centers that are either defined or undefined. Now, this is really useful because it's very helpful when you work with people to understand their chart. If a center is defined, that means that that's a clear characteristic in terms of you really know where you stand with that on certain topics. And then there's these little pointers or these channels, they call them, that you can read more about that feed into that center. So there's certain characteristics about the center. If the center is open, that means that person is more susceptible to influence. And so when people have a lot of defined centers, they're usually very, you know, you're working with somebody who's going to have only a certain amount of flexibility, if you will. You might get along with that person really well, but you know where that person stands and you kind of have to really dance with that. If you're working with somebody who has a lot of undefined centers, then it's a different ballgame. You might need to be the leader because they might have a lot of different directions that they're kind of leaning into. They are very pliable. They work well with a lot of different people because they're less invested in things being a certain way because of how they're built. So I could go more into human design. It's a fascinating body of work. I find that it's particularly useful when it comes to working together because there's things that I've discovered about people I hire as contractors that are just really helpful. Like this person needs a lot of for sure's. This person is they're going to come in and out. They need their downtime. They're going to flow like that. And it just helps you understand that before you're kind of trying to figure that out, wondering why someone is showing up differently than you do. Understanding and embracing your strengths. Now, this seems like a really obvious one, but it's not. And the subtleties about understanding your strengths is to understand, one, you're not here to do it all. You're not going to be able to succeed at every single part of it. You're not going to be fantastic at every area of your business. You're not going to naturally love every area of your business. But when you can say, these are the qualities that really make me shine, that I know I'm good at. For me, one of them is communication. I am a communicator. I love to go into something and invite new channels of conversation, to reflect, and then to share it, right? I'm not just an intellect and then I sit by myself. And there are people that are like that too. Maybe they write, a body of work, but they never interact with other people. For me, I really get fed by the idea that there are other people out in the world who have an experience that also helps shape how I view or what I can reach or what I can understand by interacting with others. And so when you understand your strengths, it's not that you ignore the parts of you that aren't that. It's that you can celebrate those strengths and you can choose what you take on in terms of, is this taking away from, or is this supporting the best version of me, the way that I'm supposed to thrive? Leaning into your edge of genius. Now, this is a really fascinating book. And I think I read it about 4 years ago. And it's a beautiful body of knowledge that basically discusses that most of us are taught from a really young age. And I'm trying to think of the author as I'm speaking, and it'll come to me shortly. And I should have written it down. But leaning into your edge of genius is accepting where you've become very good and proficient in certain areas of your life. And that there are other areas where most people will fall into the area they're good, but there's an area of genius where things start to get really interesting. And it's like that flow state. If you know what flow state is, it's when you know that things are just lining up for you because there's something very synchronistic about the way that they're playing out. And most people are, more comfortable with like a little good and then a bit of a halt or a hesitation and then more good. And then there's this dance that feels more, let's say, normal. And leaning into your edge of genius is really playing that edge of what's possible. And when you live from that edge of possibility in your work, what does that mean? Well, it often means there's no roadmap, first of all. There's nobody behind you saying, for sure, this is the way, I can know this, because nobody's ever walked it before. Nobody's ever created what you've done, and nobody's ever done it the way that you're going to do it. And because this is it's an invitation into the unknown, a lot of people don't feel like it's a good or smart business decision or business mentality to have. On the flip side of that, though, leaning into the edge of your genius is basically bringing forth what you're actually here to create. It's what you're naturally good at. It's what you have been gifted, these skills or these qualities that you take for granted that not everybody can do the way that you do them. And there's a ripple effect when you do those things. People can feel that this is what that person's supposed to be doing. And why would that be beneficial in a business? Because it instills confidence, because people will want to be around you, because they can sense that it's not something you're trying or forcing. That is a natural gift that you have. It's a skill that you offer. It's unique. I'm still trying to think of this author. It'll come. This is a really important, it's an important concept to sit with because it also invites us back into that conversation around visioning and checking in with your limiting beliefs. And if this is enough for now, is it enough because you're honoring how you're built and what your version of thriving is? Or is this enough because this is what you're used to? This is what other people around you are reflecting they're used to. And I guarantee that most people, when they play into their genius or when they access their genius, very few people would trade it, because there's so much energy that's perpetuated when you get to do the things that you love and that you're really good at. What makes a good leader in your eyes? This is such an important question, because we've seen in the last few years, especially, such a fall of leadership, such a lack of integrity in leadership, such a desire to have really, really potent leaders in the world. And when we think of ourselves as a leader, it doesn't mean that we need to think of ourselves in, somebody else's clothing. It just means that when we decide what makes a good leader and what we respect, we can observe where we're holding those qualities or where we might not be holding those qualities. So for instance, I've always valued honesty. And so when I check in and I'm not being honest with myself in some area of my life, and it's not like I would ever lie outright, but if I'm not being honest and I'm thinking, well, I haven't been showing up, the way that I would like to, or I haven't been giving this person enough clear direction for them to actually see, I'm being honest about my role. If I'm being honest, do I feel really ready to grow that neck, to promote that? I'm being honest. And so a good leader, in my eyes, doesn't just make things up as they go. We're not here to just pretend that we have it all together. We definitely don't want to, as business owners, assume that we know. We want to be at the forefront of the growth. We want to be, as informed and confident as we can, but we're also going to say, look, this didn't go according to plan. Let's take another 2 weeks, redo these areas. And that honesty is going to instill more trust. It's going to instill more trust in the people that you work with and in the people who are watching you and your services. It's not over-promising, which you see a lot of in marketing. It's not convincing, right? It's not pushing things into the world that don't have that underlying energy of integrity. And you can feel that. And everybody is very, very aware and in tune with the energy of integrity. Maybe they're aware of it, maybe they're not. But when somebody is putting on a persona, it's obvious. It's obvious. You can feel it. They're trying really hard. They're speaking quickly. They're sound like you've heard it before. And so for me, a good leader shows a certain degree of humanness and has to take on the role and the responsibility of directing what's next. And sometimes that directing what's next needs to be a break, a pause, a reset, whatever it is. But that authenticity and that integrity of being upfront and honest with everyone around you lets everyone else relax, because they know that they can expect that from that person. They don't have to guess. They don't have to do emotional backflips to please, how are they going to show up now? That person is going to tell you how they feel. They're going to tell you where we're looking at. What are we dealing with this week? What is the priority right now? And for me, a good leader allows everyone else ease because they're honest, right? If I'm honest, I don't expect you to lie to me. There's no point. It's not going to get us anywhere. It's just going to waste both of our time. And so I'm just giving an example of something that I consider in leadership that I value. So I hold that esteem to myself. I want to be someone that people can rely on, that they can trust, they can be honest with, they can share what's going on. I'm not here to waste anyone's time. I don't appreciate, I don't attract a lot of people who waste my time. And I can usually read if they're trying to. And so these are really great things for us to explore as adults, because maybe we haven't thought about it that much lately. Maybe we haven't thought about, if I get to choose, what values do I want to have in my business as a business owner, just as a person? charting a path that honors the role you wish to play in your business. Now, I feel like this is great because we're looping back into things we've covered, but charting a path that honors your role means, again, allowing yourself to be supported so that you don't have to play all the roles, honoring your time. So setting yourself up to succeed as a holistic entrepreneur means having boundaries around your time. This also means having boundaries around your phone, around how much you're on, around how much time you take off, around your sleep, around your well-being, around everything that supports you to show up as a person that's ready to offer something else. Okay. I got it. The book name, 𝐊𝐿 Hendricks and the Zone of Genius. I told you it would come back. 𝐊𝐿 Hendricks, The Zone of Genius, is a brilliant book. He's a lovely man. You can follow him on Instagram, 𝐊𝐿, G-A-Y, Hendricks, H-E-N-D-R-I-C-K-S. Speaks a lot about how he in his life navigated parts where he recognized that he was playing slightly smaller in the zone that was, he was good, his excellence, right? The things that he was good at, the things that other people appreciated him doing that he was good at, versus when he chose to step into the unknown territory of playing in the genius, he calls it, playing in the possibility, playing in the unknown because it hasn't been done before, but I'm going to do it through this expression that is mine. Highly, highly suggest this book if you haven't read it, because not only does it apply to business, it just allows you to really access the part of you that is the visionary behind your work. You absolutely are a unique expression in the world, and the way that you do something is not the same way someone else does. And for you to honor that within yourself, you're not just exchanging your time for a paycheck. You can show up, you can do that job well, you can do that job medium, you can excel, your choice. So totally up to you. And there is no wrong answer. Sometimes we need to take a step back. I love this one. I would say this in many different respects. Making inspiration a must. This is also, we will basically acknowledge that being inspired means that you have a certain amount of your life sorted, let's say, or taken care of. There's nothing that's in immediate, dire, imminent needs your attention that's going to cause catastrophe. And in fact, even if there is, the beauty of life is, can you still bring inspiration, not just for your work life, but for yourself as a person? Can I still see the beauty in the moments where I feel anything but inspired, right? And it's challenging. And this is a very refined practice. But some people view inspiration as a luxury because they've been living and dealing with a world that they've just had to struggle through. Maybe that struggle is somewhat by choice, and maybe that struggle is circumstances, however you want to look at it. In my eyes, it's essential for anything you wish to do well. And I would go so far as to say, even if you have struggled a lot in your life, when you focus on the thing that's getting you through, whether that's hope, whether that's vision, whether that's determination, that inspiration carries with it so much energy that usually it allows you to continue to move forward. Even if sometimes that moving forward feels like a fight, inspiration is a highly underrated ingredient because we feel like it's unnecessary, right? We feel like we should automatically do things that we know we should. Well, a lot of people struggle with doing things consistently when they might or might not have the energy, when they're getting tired with it, when they're not seeing the purpose of it. Inspiration is kind of like the secret vitamin in life that allows you to show up differently. It allows you to be received differently because people can feel what inspiration you're carrying. They can sense that you actually love doing what you're doing. And that is contagious. It's contagious. I get a lot of inspiration when I tap into my yoga practice. I get a lot of inspiration from nature. I get a lot of inspiration from really heartfelt conversations. I get inspiration from a lot of connection. And I also get inspiration from silence. And so I know what works for me, because I've also been in places in my life where I wasn't doing those things. I wasn't connecting at a deep level. I wasn't taking time for myself. I was kind of getting lost in conversations that I really didn't feel that I was very interested in. And the path of becoming more aware of what inspires me is that I've chosen to do things in my life now that I know inspire me. I don't just choose things to do because I think I need to do them or I should do them. I choose to do things that I know. I do a lot of things too that I need to do, but I prioritize and I balance life with a number of things that I know help me feel inspired. Music, discussions, knowledge that leaves me feeling inspired. And as a business owner, it's not about, and again, this is important depending on how you're built. If you get inspiration from other people, fantastic. But watch that slope, because sometimes you can get inspiration from other people and it can either fuel you or leave you feeling more confused. Maybe you're left comparing. Your version of inspiration needs to leave you feeling more energy, not going to an inspirational conference and then coming home and wondering if you're doing things right in your business. Okay, that's not staying inspired. That's lack of clarity, right? That's adding too many voices to your unique path, right? You're here to carve and to tune in, like your ear to the path. What is wanting to come through and how is it wanting to come through? What is working with what I'm doing and what is just not, it's feeling slightly off with the direction I'm going in. So understanding the energy behind growth is essential. Your business is going to require pretty consistent energy until it gets to a place where there's enough momentum and structure to perpetuate a certain amount of activity without your necessarily energy being involved. Understanding the energy behind growth means that usually, well, actually quite often, if you think of a plant, if you think of a baby, anything that's beginning its growth needs a lot of nutrients, needs a lot of attention, needs a lot of input or presence. And then as that growth takes off, growth creates more growth, the structure gets more solid, the foundation is there, then you can continue to either slow the growth, perpetuate the growth, whatever you choose to do, you've already laid the foundation for it. So if you can think about it like this, because most people start businesses and along the path of 6 months to 18 months, they realize how much work it is, they become exhausted. Somehow they haven't yet put into place the things that they need to, right? Whether sometimes it's the physical structures of their business, they've struggled with learning all these skills, which they shouldn't do by themselves anyway, or the mindset. The mindset is exhausting them. That's the idea that you always need to be doing, or we're not where you're supposed to be. And that mindset is also draining you, by the way. But understanding the energy of growth means that you commit to topping yourself up for this period. You commit when you're doing something new and you're beginning it to stay inspired. Very similar to if you were to try and start training for a marathon, but you've never really been a runner or a fan of running. You're going to choose to do things that keep you inspired so that you continue to move forward with that vision. It's not that you get so attached to the goal that you rip your hamstring and then you're still attached to the vision. It's that you choose to stay with the energy of inspiration. You choose to look at, women's stories about how they overcame struggles in life and they kept, training. It took them 3 years instead of 1, but they did it. And they felt a sense of real pride in their efforts, whatever it is. You choose what inspires you. Lean in and get creative with what inspires you, but know that you're going to need in your business life areas that continue to fuel how excited you are about what you're doing. Ways to stay inspired. We kind of covered a few of them, but ways to stay inspired. First one, take a break. Take a break, take a break, take a break. I learned this the hard way. I am very, very excited and passionate quite often about what I do. And always I'm adding to it, which is also kind of, can be exhausting. But when I take a break, I come back, I completely put everything on the table that I feel I need to do at some point. I take a break. I don't keep doing more because that drains me. And it also leads to me feeling off balance if I haven't had enough time in my body, if I hadn't had enough time outside, if I hadn't had time with my daughter. And inspiration flows when there is no real pressure to it. When there's pressure to create, sometimes that can be useful in small spurts, but other times it can leave you feeling, a little bit forced or a little tired. Other ways to stay inspired are to, again, look for the people around you. We want to see yourself envisioning a similar reality. Look for the leaders that in your, whatever you're doing, and maybe it's in your field or just people in the world who are also in their zone of genius. See people who've created realities for themselves that they deeply love. And that in itself is inspiring. I think all of us love to see that. That is the energy of living in your genius. And tapping into the law of abundance to share what you know and how you plan on getting there. Now, this is actually something that when I hear people marketing what they know in a way that is, secretive or elite or VIP, kind of rubs me funny, but I'm a Libra, so I'm all about everything being even. I feel like the energy of starting to understand what we've been discussing, tapping into the things that are working and that aren't working, it's not a secret. It's not about intelligence. It's actually just about staying connected enough to notice. And when we are connecting to abundance, whether it's financial abundance or abundance of energy, for your work, or it's an abundance of creative ideas, the energy of abundance itself is usually focused on momentum. What can I perpetuate? And this versus what don't I have? What do I need more of? And so when we are in and living and perpetuating the law of abundance, we see things through eyes that are like, wow, look at all the things I've done, all the pieces I've put together in 4 months. I've got all these pages together. I've got these services that are online. You're looking through what has been expanding. You're like, wow, I've noticed a shift in how committed I am. I feel like I've been talking to all these people that are just the right people at the right time. You're looking at that versus I have so far to go. I'm not where I want to be. That person's way further ahead. And when we are tapping into abundance, we perpetuate abundance. We talk like we're in abundance. People can hear that we're on a forward, upward swing. And it doesn't always mean that you will be, but we can also recognize when we're not, and we can say, okay, something needs to shift here. Yes, I didn't make as much perhaps sales or money as I did or wanted to 4 months ago. What can I shift? Well, I've created a completely new idea for where I'm going. I've got a lot of excited potential clients that I've been discussing this with, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? The abundance could be the energy in your new direction. That could be an abundance. And when we're talking to other people, we want to share it, not because we want people to know about us, not because we want to get something from them, not because we're trying to prove that we're an expert, and definitely not because we want to seem elite, right? We want to be the expert. I am the person to come to for this. All of that feels very yucky to me. But when we're sharing from a place of abundance, it's because we are very confident that we're going to have more. There's enough for everybody. Abundance is about having more than enough, right? Which is actually quite triggering for some people. It's more than enough, which means if I've created solutions and ideas and things that work, why wouldn't I want to share them with you? Why wouldn't I want you to succeed? Why wouldn't I want to include you in this success? Why wouldn't I want you to feel great? Why wouldn't we all want to feel great? That is contagious. Not perpetuating the idea that other people are in lack. They've got, often marketing will speak to their wounds, which I'm not a fan of. So we get to choose how we're creating the structure, the energy behind our business and how we present it to the world. And I guarantee these might seem like small changes, but the way people experience you and how good they feel when they work with you is going to speak for itself and create its own energy, because this is what I realized when I began doing this work. I very clearly recognized I didn't resonate with traditional marketing. I didn't feel like it suited my soul. I didn't want to take on these personas to try and sell things that didn't fit, didn't inspire me. And there's no reason that you can't decide any combination of what we've discussed, but it's really important to remember that at the core, everything that you put into place, everything that you choose or you invest in supports the direction that you want to head in, supports the energy of your business. It all works together. It feels like it supports your vision. And that is a very unique individual vision. So business at its core, instead of seeing it as this thing that we need to build a certain way, we need to do a certain way, we need to show up a certain way, it's a highly creative endeavor. And when we come from that place as business being a highly creative endeavor, where the work that we offer is so unique, so needed in the world, there's a need for it. In fact, there's people who want the services that we're creating or the products that we've, really believe in. When we see it as a service, then the energy shifts. It is a service. We can show up and we can offer it as a service, not as something we're trying to get by people or trying to convince people they need. So these are big beliefs to shift. And I always say this, when we start to look at areas of our life with a new perspective and we're willing to do a little digging, I always use this analogy, we're looking at something with more clarity. It is something you should feel proud of, right? You are growing. You are inviting potential room for growth that is going to change how you operate. And so this is a choice, and this is a luxury. And this is work that you can do for yourself, and it will definitely benefit not only you, but other people. So I have on the screen just a couple of ways you can connect. I am not a huge TikToker, but I have joined, and you can also email me at consciousfbrands@gmail.com. And for now, I feel that this has allowed us to cover one of the biggest things that I have to say in the world of, I'm just going to mess with the screen for a second. There we go. Thriving is very much a word that we want to start to ask ourselves more questions about what we need, where we want to go, what that would look like. And so instead of being, behind this version of thriving that someone else has defined, I really encourage you to invest in a little bit of reworking what it is that you want to create for yourself, what it is that you see for your business and the purpose of your business, and really allowing your work life to take on this very creative and a much more expansive version of how we've been taught, right? That business is, something that we can, it's like chess almost, business is like smart moves, not smart moves. No, it's an evolution of how you show up, and it's a permission slip that you give yourself to invest in something that's a part of you. It's come through you. And so when you invest in your business, it also has to be an investment in yourself, and it has to be evenly feeding one and the other. Thank you so much for joining me. And whether you're watching the replay, I really do feel that there are so many amazing women in the world who are stepping in and ready to begin a different conversation about how we create really meaningful and purposeful work out in the world. Thank you so much for being here.